Приветствую также наших зрителей, слушателей. Как всегда, вначале напоминаю о том, что...
As always, let me start with a reminder. A new issue of the online newspaper Continent is already waiting for you this morning. If you're a subscriber, great, you're already reading. If not, you can subscribe right now without leaving your device. Let me also remind you that the Continent YouTube channel is still active. This week we have many interesting meetings and traditional programs. Don't miss out. There's a lot happening in the world, and we try to cover it as much as possible. Today I have a special opportunity to invite someone who has already appeared on our Continent channel. We had a very interesting conversation back then. I suppose some of our People's Wave audience today might not have heard that discussion. Moreover, that conversation, thanks to my guest's efforts, was later translated into English and also took place for the English-speaking audience. So, if you've already heard it, don't judge, we'll repeat some of it. But as always, in a new conversation, you'll hear something new, and if not, I hope it'll still be interesting. So, Yuri Dedov-Goldman, a man who lives in Israel. To start with, a former long-distance ship captain. He captained ships in the country he emigrated from. And now, in addition to media projects, he has one very important, large-scale and serious endeavor, a navigable canal. But I'll let Yuri explain that himself. So Yuri, briefly remind us what this is about. I assume some people didn't hear our earlier show on Continent.
Допускаю, что кто-то не слышал моей той передачи на континенте.
You're giving me the floor?
The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, dear Igor. Good evening, viewers, or how should I put it? YouTubers, right? YouTube viewers and radio listeners at the same time. I'm very pleased that you've invited me on the air for the second time this month. It once again shows how important this topic is. In Israel, I've been knocking on a closed door for 25 years. I arrived in Israel in 1999. Almost immediately, I looked around and saw this empty sea, puzzling to a captain and someone who spent childhood summers at his grandmother's place in Feodosia on the Black Sea coast. It didn't make sense. How could a sea be empty?
Я начал задавать вопросы неудобные, вопросы властимущим. Ребята, а вы вообще зачем создавали Израиль? Зачем вы нас...
That's how it all started. I began asking questions, inconvenient questions to those in power. Guys, why did you even create Israel? Why did you invite us nerds here? I, for one, am a nerd in my field, meaning I'm a good ocean-going captain. I've worked on almost every type of ship, from tugs to passenger liners, bulk carriers, tankers, you name it. And seeing an empty sea was completely abnormal, incompatible with life, I'd say, especially since Jews have always been among the world's brightest minds. Leading in innovation, making money where others don't even think to look. And here's a gold mine, right in front of you, so to speak. Especially since God gave you a land without any natural resources. So look around, and that's where it began. First came a small project called high-speed marine passenger transport. The idea was to operate 5 catamaran-type vessels traveling between Israeli cities with marinas, yacht docks, These small ships, 24 meters long, 6 meters wide, for 150 passengers, are a great tourist and economic attraction, aimed at easing road congestion and connecting port to port, marina to marina. Soon, I managed to reach the Ministry of Transport. They approved the project. They practically tested me and said, "A great project. If we had dozens, even hundreds like this, we'd be thrilled. Sailors would have work. But for 25 years, you can laugh or cry. I couldn't secure funding, even though by business standards the project is relatively cheap. Just 20 million euros. That's for 5 vessels that would kickstart the coastal economy. Marinas grow, businesses develop, cities gain tax revenue, travel agencies get involved. We could even transport people to Cyprus, which is nearby. The trip takes just 8 hours at regular speed, or 6 at high speed. In short, the project is wonderful and relatively small, but still hasn't been realized. Recently, when Israeli tourists were stranded in Cyprus due to protests and the security situation, and many airlines canceled flights, this project could have easily handled their return. There were about 1,000 to 1,500 people stuck. Just 10 trips, each ship doing 2 round trips, and everyone would have been safely home. That wraps up the small project. Now, on to the global one, the biggest I could imagine. When the small one failed, I thought further. How can such a small country with such a smart, educated population generate wealth and become the envy of its neighbors? Because I believe that when you're rich and have everything, you become kind and generous. People are drawn to you, and no one wants to kill, humiliate, or destroy you, like what happened on October 7th. I wondered, what's the solution? As I told you in our last show, I was listening to Radio Reka while doing business, and they talked about Theodor Herzl and his novel, The Promised Land, where he wrote, "And caravans will cross the Negev, not of camels, but of ships." Good heavens! At that moment, a sea captain's heart could have stopped. I said to myself, Eureka! People, what he said back then, nearly 100 years ago. Eureka! I rushed to a store, bought a geographical map. Simple, but large. Took a compass, took a ruler, started looking and making some calculations. And there it was, the answer to the challenge the Almighty gave us, the one we were meant to solve. In front of us lies the beautiful dry land of the Negev. The only reason we don't see a navigable canal there is because of the elevation. And when I calculated the lowest points, as you've already guessed, the idea came to build a navigable canal, and it turned out to be absolutely feasible. So I started running the numbers. Those calculations took about 2 months. What did the numbers say? It's absolutely doable. Egypt has a navigable canal, and everyone accepts that. Everyone comes to it cap in hand. And, frankly, I'm not sure how to say it politely. Well, let's just say it's gotten arrogant. But at the same time, they've let their own canal, which provides a major part of Egypt's budget, silt up to just 13 meters. In the 21st century, people, I don't care what they think in Egypt, We're going to build our own canal. We'll build it with a profile that allows every ship in the world to pass through it and choose this as their only route. Because why go somewhere your ship might run aground, or where, even if it doesn't, the suction pumps are pulling in sand that goes through the pipes to cool the main engine, along with the sand? Can you imagine what mechanic could tolerate that? And yet ships keep going there. We've all seen cases where they silt up and completely block that poor Suez Canal. We'll build our own. We'll build it so that the largest ship in the world, with a 25-meter draft, can pass freely, with at least 5 meters of clearance under the keel. That means a 30-meter deep canal. I calculated, if we go through the lowest areas, it's about 250 kilometers. Yes, that's 6.
Я посчитал, получается, если пройти по самым низменным местам, то это где-то получается 250 километров.
Yes, that's 60 kilometers longer than the Suez Canal. So what? In exchange, we'll go at almost full speed. All ships will travel at high speed. Not like in Egypt, where they form convoys and go one way for a day, then the other way the next day, just to avoid collisions. That's a real caravan of camels. But with us, ships will move entirely freely. Approach, slow down, take a pilot on board, then go full or medium speed through the canal. The exact speed will be determined later by the administration of this new Israeli navigable canal. But in terms of dimensions, any vessel could pass through at fairly high speed, making the transit in 10 to 14 hours, depending on conditions. I then calculated how many ships, after the Houthi attacks on the international fleet, rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope around Africa. I took the number that had increased over the past 2 years. These were ships diverted by the situation, and added it to my tally. Then I counted the fleet headed to the Mediterranean but forced to go around Africa, coming from Asia, from the Saudi Basin, from the Persian Gulf. In short, I gathered all the data and statistics. My estimate, at least 320 ships per day would pass through our canal, and large tonnage ones at that. When people say to me, Egypt will be up in arms and declare war on you, I say, relax. I'm a simple man, a simple captain, and a bit of an economist, someone with an economics degree, though it's not my profession. But my education allows me to do these calculations, and if I can do them, any professional can, and will see the income we'd get from large tonnage vessels, not the smaller ones up to 100,000 to 120,000 tons that Egypt handles. And we won't make Egypt an offer. We'll publish a memorandum stating, Egypt, we have no intention of violating your rights. We have no intention of infringing on your income. Ships with drafts up to 13 meters will continue to pass through your canal. But ships you cannot pass through the Suez Canal. We'll take them. Igor, this is far more lucrative than the small stuff, because we're talking about ships from 150,000 tons up to infinity, 500,000 and beyond. All ships over 150,000 tons, they're ours. And that's a different level of income, because canal fees are usually calculated, and will be here too, based on the vessel's dimensions. The bigger the ship, the higher the fee. Naturally, let them keep their canal however long they want. We'll be happy for them. Even offer advice and training courses on increasing canal throughput. So that's the short story I wanted to share. But I'm so eager to keep going that I can if you don't have questions.
Вопросы будут, может быть, и даже...
No, I think there will definitely be questions, maybe even from our listeners in the second half of the show. But I'll say this. We're talking about a project that costs enormous amounts of money. Even if it promises even greater returns, we know how hard it is to launch even a modest project. You started with something small, not pocket change, but relatively modest, and it still required 1 million approvals, especially considering the bureaucracy in Israel. Every official wants something. If not money, then recognition. If not recognition, then maybe something they can write down and tuck into the Western Wall. But this is a global project, and sometimes such things get greenlit by a single powerful decision. Other times, nothing. How are you being received? That's what I want to hear about. Because if people have more detailed questions, they'll reach out. Tell us a little about what you've encountered on this path.
С вами даже и свяжется, и задаст. А вот то вы на вот этом пути с чем столкнулись?
Будем говорить тогда о канале.
Well, I just couldn't find the funding. Let's go. This canal offers Israel not just immense wealth. When all global shipping and goods start passing through our canal, all the countries involved, and that includes the world's most developed and resource-rich nations, will route their cargo through us. Today, about 20% of global trade goes through the Suez Canal. Igor, let's be conservative and assume, with ours, it'll be double. Because right now, everyone is sailing around Africa, wasting an extra 8,000 miles, burning billions of dollars in diesel and heavy fuel, losing time and money. We will offer them a modern blue road, blue like the flag of Israel. And all flags are welcome. Come on in. We don't even need them to... Everyone will listen when we start talking about money. When you're talking billions, even trillions, people pay attention. No doubt about it. You asked, what about the establishment? Nothing. Silence. You can't get through. I don't have Netanyahu's phone number, so I try to reach people who might have backdoor access. These intermediaries, let's call them that, start acting smart. They say, "Are you sure this canal will work?" That's not what I asked you for, buddy. Just tell your boss that there's a project. What he does, that's up to him. If he wants to meet me, he'll schedule a meeting. If he wants to appoint a liaison, an official or a scientist, they'll call me in for a discussion, like Lieberman did once, back in 2003. He reviewed the project and was impressed. His assistant, Dawid Godowski, called me. Credit where it's due. They expressed enthusiasm and said, "Once the Knesset elections are over, we'll be in touch." That was literally the day before the elections. In the following years, I kept reminding them, "You said you'd get in touch, right? You said you would." Eventually, someone dragged me into a meeting. "Come on, let's go see Lieberman." I said, "I don't want to." "No, come on. We'll make sure you get a chance to talk to him." And yes, they did. They turned him toward me by his car. I handed him the folder again, the project documents, reminded him, and he said, "Yeah, I remember." Impressive. He also made another move toward the project in 2007. At that time, I had just opened a restaurant. It was a Friday. The place was packed. And I got a call from Leonid Dinovich, the chief scientist of the Russian-speaking Scientific Council. He immediately complimented the project and said Lieberman had asked him to hold a seminar, Well, a scientific council meeting to discuss it. Thank you very much. Yes, we held that seminar in Jerusalem at the House of Scientists. And then a second seminar was held, without me, in Ashdod at the House of Science and Technology a year later. They discussed the navigable canal project again. 2 great protocols came out of those meetings. They're posted on my website, isracanal.com. Those protocols recommended the government urgently consider the possibility of building the canal. That's it. No follow-up calls, no knocks on the door, no unexpected messages, nothing. But I haven't stopped. I keep pushing, especially now with the internet. It gives me tremendous possibilities. I'm spreading the word everywhere. I post on Facebook and other social media platforms. I won't name them, no need to give free advertising, because they're basically useless. Sure, people, the general public, seem supportive, but when I look at the number of likes and reactions, I want to cry. A strong article goes out, maybe 20 likes at best. Then, silence. Everyone forgets. The post sinks down the feed. So I post again, in a different format with a different hook. Another reminder. Tap, tap, tap. Another 20, or 10, sometimes 3. Is that normal? People, this is your future. This is unlimited economic potential for our country. This is the solution to all the programs politicians promise you and never deliver, because there's no money, because they don't know how to manage a budget. They don't pass economically sound laws to keep money circulating. They drive companies out of the country. I'm handing you a project on a silver platter that solves all of that. Every obstacle will fall. The budget will be overflowing. So much so that even corruption won't be able to drain it fast enough. It will keep filling up despite the corruption. But here's the nasty side of our Jewish reality. When someone says they're a professional politician, it means they know how to divide the budget. Learn how to generate one first, Mr. Politician. First, pass laws that lower taxes. Do everything to keep businesses from leaving. Better yet, bring them back. If all the businesses that left Israel over the past 10 to 15 years came back, we'd already be thriving. But I'm giving you a tool. This project brings in massive money, and I haven't even mentioned this yet. Just from canal passage fees alone, my calculations estimate around $58 billion a year. Not shekels, dollars. And there's more. This isn't just a project. It's full of cherries on top. Can you imagine? A Jew, who more than anyone loves to count money, watches as ships pass by with cargo, like a cat watching cream, and he doesn't get the urge to profit from it? A 300,000-ton tanker goes by with oil, then a 500,000-ton one. A guy is sitting with a fishing rod on the canal's bank, watching these giants raise the water level by a meter as they pass. Then the water recedes, and he doesn't think, what are they carrying? Oh, oil again. So why not process that oil here? And when the government finally realizes this, it will make an offer related to the canal toll. Dear shipper, wouldn't you like to cut costs and refine the oil here? The canal stretches 250 kilometers through the Negev. Choose a spot. We'll help you allocate land, build a basin, a port, docks, install your equipment, go ahead and refine it. Or we'll refine it ourselves, depending on what's decided at the top. And from that additional refining, oh, the profits. Plus, then we face the question, what to do with the refined product? We'll create 1 or 2 shipping companies. because we'll need to transport the petroleum products to Europe and North America. And so we'll start developing our shipping industry, because someone has to carry all this. Then, say they're transporting cotton. We'll offer the same. Gentlemen, why drag that load another 3,000 miles? Let's process it here, at least partially. Why wait until Amsterdam? It's still a month's journey away. Save time and money. Do it here. You think they won't agree? They'll be chasing after us. And in return, we can play with tariffs, reduce them, incentivize processing, and so on. But look at how many extra revenue streams we'll generate. Everything will pass through us, through our country. We're not Egyptians, right?
Через нашу страну. Мы же не египтяне. Да. Я с вами.
I'm with you. Let's circle back to the beginning. I understand you've painted a picture of complete prosperity, but we'll come back to that and to the start of our conversation. And maybe someone will want to ask some very specific questions.
Добрый день, пожалуйста, в эфире.
Алло, здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Вот вы упомянули о хуситах.
Hello. You mentioned the Houthis. Because of their actions in the Red Sea, the Suez Canal has basically not been functioning for over a year. The same goes for Israel's port on the Red Sea, also not operational. And the overland cargo route through Israel that the port supported is also shut down. That port went bankrupt. So how will you operate economically if the future of your canal and its security depend on conditions like these? How will you ensure that?
Попытаетесь обеспечивать. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Юрий, пожалуйста.
Меня слышно, да?
Да.
Ну, смотрите.
Yes. Look, the question might seem complicated to you, but to me, it's not. There's a reason I brought up Egypt and the origins of our project. For 160 years, they haven't had the brains to properly maintain their canal. And now I'm watching in horror as some desert gangs armed with rockets, but still desert gangs, people in sandals, you know, have caused the greatest damage imaginable to Egypt. And President El-Sisi just wipes his face and does nothing. Meanwhile, he somehow still finds the time to, well, threaten is too strong a word, but to rattle his saber and move troops to Israel's border, supposedly to protect the Gaza terrorists. Yes, that's what Egypt has the smarts for. But to mobilize his entire army, with no one threatening him from any direction, and wipe out those Houthi savages, why not? Why hasn't he asked the international community for help with a ground military operation? Because they need to be crushed, wiped from the face of the earth. Why not? Do you think, dear listener, that Israel will just watch piracy at sea in the same way? I'm not so sure. This year, we finally showed you what Israel can do when it's angry. In Lebanon, the terror kings found themselves in a strange situation. Things started exploding in their pockets. Some lost their behinds, some their hands, some had eyes pop out in the wrong places. Microwaves, pagers, and other junk kept going off. You think we won't figure out how to protect our territory? That's the first point. The second is this. You have to understand. The Houthis are a short-term historical glitch. Just a glitch. That's how I see it. You think all the countries of the world that will be sending ships through a magnificent Israeli canal, and see what it offers for economic growth won't be willing to throw in money, damn it, to hire some units to wipe them out. They'll find the funds. They'll do it. That's not a problem. Clear, in short, not a problem.
Юрий, я
просто-
думаю...
Это не проблема. Это не проблема.
Понял, вот все, коротко, не проблема. Давайте вот о чем.
Let's talk about this. I understand that a project like this requires enormous amounts of money, no matter how you slice it. Can you say how many years it took to build the Suez Canal, what the costs were, and compare that to how much time and money it would take to build the Yuri Dedov-Goldman navigable canal?
Выделено времени и денег.
Основные работы на Суэцком канале велись...
The main work on the Suez Canal was done with picks, shovels, and human labor. At best, they used carts. But it was also the first time in history that some steam-powered digging machines were used. Still, it was mostly manual work, hauling soil in wheelbarrows. In total, around 100,000 people died during the Suez Canal's construction. The main work took about 10 years, then another 10 years finishing, reinforcing, and so on. They built it to a depth of 18 meters, but as soon as the first small fleet went through, the royal yacht ran aground. Great start. But the opening of the Suez Canal did give the world the opera Aida, a remarkable cultural gift. It was dedicated specifically to the canal's opening. As for us, I think, pardon the pun, we'll be done in 5 years. The tender will attract the most serious global companies with the most advanced equipment. So we'll finish in 5 years, maybe sooner. The work is repetitive. Dig soil here, dump it into the Dead Sea Basin, 100 meters deep, to create the canal's new bed. Short distances. There will be a railway along the canal bed and banks to haul soil in large volumes. As Israeli academic Anatoly Kochan said during a canal seminar, I was so worried, really worried. I thought he'd bury me in soil volumes. But then he said, as for blasting work, I'm not concerned. Israel can blow things up 24/7 for a whole year if needed. So, there's your answer. Through blasting, multiple charges, and modern earth-moving technology, we'll handle it quickly, despite the height of soil removal. At the highest point where the canal crosses the Dead Sea Ridge, it's 320 meters. At first, I mistakenly thought it was 500. That was a big error. Then, studying a topographic map, I found another route and recalculated. It's just 320 meters. Still big numbers, yes, about 30 to 33 billion cubic meters of soil. But with modern capabilities, it will be done quickly.
Это все равно порядка 30-33 миллиардов кубов грунта. Но современными возможностями это будет делаться быстро.
Юрий, я думаю, что вот те, кто заинтересуется, хотя бы...
Yuri, I think those who are interested, even just for personal curiosity, can watch our earlier show on Continent, where you use maps to explain this. Because right now, people are probably trying to imagine, where exactly is this canal? How will it run? Some people are listening without watching, some are watching, but either way, illustrations would help. And your publications have many details that people without strong technical knowledge might not easily picture.
Тех каких-то элементов, которые плохо даже представляются людям, особенно с не таким хорошим техническим знанием, а гуманитарными мозгами, скажем так.
Igor, you know what you just cleverly did? You shifted in the video frame. Stay like that for a minute. Just to your left. Later, with your permission, I'll place a map there and show the canal's route.
I certainly don't mind. And neither will Sergei Zatsipin from People's Wave.
Great. I'll put the map there so people can see the route of the Israeli navigable canal. And there was something else you asked.
Yes, lots of technical questions, of course. But really, for a project like this, even without full-scale studies and calculations by entire institutes, what's your ballpark estimate? Just name a figure so people have it in mind. Comments might follow.
Okay, here's the thing. Initially, when I calculated based on removing 500 meters of elevation, the numbers came to about 360 to 600 billion. I couldn't even finish the math. The costs were enormous. But after some significant clarifications, in my earlier version I had planned for a canal 50 meters deep, because I knew there was once a tanker called Globtic Tokyo, with a draft over 30 meters. To be safe, in case even bigger ships were built, I planned for 50 meters. But after several interviews you and others kindly gave me the opportunity to do, I got a flood of feedback, including correct criticism. One person said, "Where today do you see a ship with a 35-meter draft?" That got me thinking. I looked for my beloved Globtic and found it had been scrapped 20 years ago. It no longer exists. I kept searching. The largest draft of the biggest ship today is 25 meters. So why dig 50 meters? A 5-meter clearance under the keel is enough. No sand suction, no sticking to the bottom. Nothing bad. It's a normal channel depth. 5 meters deeper than the ship's draft. So we reduced the depth by 20 meters. That's no joke. Over 250 kilometers. Then, thanks to a very precise topographic map, I found an entirely different route. It's nearby, but different. And there,
At least tell us, from where to where?
we start from Ashkelon, just south of the Rotenburg power station. That's where we begin digging. First, we bypass Gaza, along the northern border. This part is still up for revision, as you might guess. So we pass along Gaza's northern edge, then curve south and find the lowest areas. As you'll see, the route isn't perfectly straight. We seek low points to minimize digging. That continues until we cross the ridge. Again, we find the lowest pass. This time, I discovered a point that's only 320 meters high. Before, it was 500. Now, it's 320. Can you imagine the savings? Instead of the originally planned 65 billion cubic meters of soil, it turns out we only need to move about 30.5 billion. That drastically lowers the initial costs. Of course, I understand I can't single-handedly calculate a canal project on a napkin. But we arrived at a figure: $100 billion. Previously, my estimates ranged from $360 to $600 billion. Can you imagine that? Now, it's $100 billion, and that includes building a highway, building a railway, and running both along the canal. All included. That's hundreds of millions. Excuse me, hundreds of billions. But it still fits within a $100 billion total. So, once the project, God willing, is approved, a team of scientists, engineers, and planners will recheck everything and produce the real numbers. But our estimate is it'll cost somewhere between $100 and $360 billion. Which version they choose, we'll see.
Другой вариант 100 миллиардов. Какой выберут?
Я понимаю, ну...
Either way, that's an impressive number. One last thing. How long will it be? How many miles or kilometers approximately?
Сколько это вы посчитали? Миль, километров?
About 252 kilometers, between 250 and 252.
Он пересекает Нагорье.
And where does it end?
We cross the ridge at 320 meters and then drop into a 100-meter deep depression, which we don't need. So we start filling it in and turn right, south, toward Eilat. There, we build the navigable channel, dumping the excess soil. The canal's wall will be at least 2 kilometers wide. Can you imagine? And despite the 100-meter depth, which decreases as we approach Eilat, we end at sea level. Once we hit that depression, we turn south and begin filling to reach minus 30 meters, sea level. We turn toward Eilat and head there. Now, exactly how it will pass through Eilat, I don't know. It's complex, and politicians, engineers, geodesists, and scientists will have to figure that out. But that's the destination, Eilat. And beyond that, open ocean. Final destination, Eilat. Yes, Eilat. And from there, the open ocean. Straight into the open ocean.
And couldn't it be done this way? This might be a layman's question, but still. You mentioned Gaza. Couldn't you cut straight across Gaza, making it a continuous canal instead of going around it?
You've touched on a very important issue, even when the war first began. In fact, much earlier, back in 2014 to 2016, when we learned about the tunnels, I had a proposal. At that time, our remarkable politician Lieberman was Minister of Defense. Yes, exactly. A remarkable politician. I mean, he really did serve in just about every ministerial position, and in most of them he showed himself in the best light. One of the best and most versatile ministers. Wherever he was appointed, things worked out well. But here's the problem. He made 2 major missteps. The first one was with me, regarding the fight against the tunnels. As soon as I found out he became Minister of Defense, I rushed to a meeting he was holding with his constituents. At that time, I was one of his outspoken supporters. I got there and said, "Yvette, my friend, please, 1 minute. This is very important." "Go ahead," I said. "Right now, the military is going to be pushing on you. Really pushing this idea of an underground iron dome, as they called it. Some kind of system capable of detecting tunnels and destroying them in advance. I don't know how many billions this project will cost. I want to give you a much simpler project. Once upon a time, you strongly supported my navigable canal project. Thank you for that. But this isn't about that. I can explain this in 1 minute. The profile of this canal, I would dig along the northern border of Gaza with Israel and along the Philadelphia corridor. It would be 500 meters wide and, as I proposed at the time, 50 meters deep. Then I'd blow up the barrier and let the Mediterranean Sea flood this trench. While we're digging down to sea level, on the west it's 0, and on the east side of Gaza it's already about 20 meters above sea level. We'd find plenty of tunnels, dozens if not hundreds up to 20 meters deep. and destroy them the traditional way, like we always have. But once we reach minus 50 meters and blow the barrier, the seawater would flood the trench. Not only would all the tunnels fill with water, they'd be gone forever. Within a week, the whole area under Gaza would be waterlogged, turning into quicksand. Nothing underground would survive. We'd also get a beautiful near-sea border with Egypt, where we could install sensors. Everyone loves sensors, and, jokingly, a border guard with a fishing rod watching everything. The same on the northern side. No terrorists. The only thing we'd be waiting for would be divers if they ever thought to use them, but they wouldn't last. We'd have beaten them. No tunnels means no hidden weapons, which means they're all in plain sight, and any future terrorist plots would be history.
Wait, so you wanted to drown Gaza? On top of starving those poor people, now you're flooding them too?
You know what, Igor? We couldn't even eat all the aid we've sent in there. It's insane how much is delivered.
I know. Normal people laughed at it, bitterly, because serious folks are getting very worked up about this, for obvious reasons.
But still, when you say drown, we're not drowning anyone.
How? If the water starts creeping in for one reason or another,
water can't rise above sea level. That's a law of physics. It'll flood only to sea level. And even that, just the tunnels. Let me give you an example. If you've been to St. Petersburg, or if you're from there, you might know about the Grajdanskaya subway station. They built it in the 1950s or early 60s, and soon after it started leaking. The city is built on marshland, and there was an engineering error. Water was pouring down the walls. So what did the scientists do? They installed freezing units and froze the soil around the tunnel. The leak stopped. And guess what? Those freezers are still running today. There's no other way to keep that tunnel intact.
you've got exactly 1 minute to make a direct appeal to our listeners. We're not just listened to in Chicago. We have an audience across America and beyond. You've got the mic.
Dear friends, you've just heard about a truly unique project, one that could completely change the world, especially the Middle East, and radically improve life in Israel. Right now, I and a group of passionate supporters are focused on gathering signatures for a petition in support of this project. Our government is blind and deaf to this. We can't get through to them. So we've set a goal: collect 50,000 signatures. If we manage that, they won't be able to ignore us. The media that refuses to invite me now will have no choice but to cover the story. They'll say, "Wait, you got 50,000 signatures for some canal project. We only got 20,000 for the soldiers." This project brings us security. It brings us wealth. It will also help our neighbors succeed, creating a prosperous and peaceful Middle Eastern trade community. Sooner or later, we will defeat the terrorists. When and how, that depends on you. So please support this project. If you can, visit the website. It's very simple. It's RACANAL.com. We'll definitely include the link in the description.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for the fascinating conversation. We'll continue to meet and discuss. And to our audience, all the best. Stay with People's Wave, stay with Continent, and happiness will follow.